Hey, what's up guys? Chad here with the Reptile Rangers. Now we're at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center again today, and we're going to talk about how to deal with a reptile that has overheated, okay? So somebody wrote us in on one of just our previous videos, and this one I kind of found, I mean, they're all important, don't get me wrong, but this one brought up absolutely just kind of a topic that I hadn't really thought about, is an animal that overheats, significantly overheats. So I wanted to just go ahead and do a video on this, since I already did have some stuff that was already related to this particular topic anyways, and go ahead and do this and get it out there, because we are fixing to come up on the summer season. We're fixing to come out of the winter season. This can happen any time of the year, and I'm going to talk about some of the causes of overheating, but also the few ways there are to actually deal with and try and help your reptile if they've overheated. But before we get into that, right in this corner is our subscriber button, and make sure you hit that. For those that already have, we appreciate you doing so and following along week after week after week. Well, let's get right into this. All right, so me and my little buddy here, this is one of the dragons that we have in the pet store front of the part of the zoo here that's of course looking for a home. He's here just hanging out with us for the video. Now, overheating in reptiles can be a problem, okay? For those of you that are wondering what I'm laughing at, he's actually noticed the rattlesnakes down here all of a sudden. And for those of you that can see Happy here, he's wanting to be involved in this too, the monocle cobra. So, but the dragon is definitely fixed on those two diamondbacks down there. Now, overheating can happen for many different reasons. All right, I haven't really thought about this much recently, but I actually seen somebody that I know, the lower part of my state, apparently a year or so ago, or a couple of years ago, had a huge malfunction with their thermostat. And I've actually seen this quite often. It happens a lot, especially during the wintertime it happens. And sometimes it happens in the summertime too. I'll explain both sides. But I can't remember what the scenario was. I can't remember if it was summer or winter. But anyways, they had a building. That was their snake building. The thermostat went bad, and just everything in there was overheated significantly. Walked in the building, and it was well over 110 degrees inside the building because the thermostat didn't kick off the heat sources, and it just continued to heat and heat and heat. And then the outside, of course, any sunlight that was hitting the building, even if it was wintertime, the sunlight hitting the building was going to help kind of continue to heat that building up. Big problem, okay? Sometimes when things catch fire, that can happen. Malfunctioning thermostats is a big problem to that, especially malfunctioning thermostats or not having a thermostat at all. Okay, so some folks have their animals in a building and they don't put any kind of a thermostat to it. They just have heat sources running, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, depending on the climate. But it's always a fantastic idea using heat tape, heat cable, flex watt, using doing a building that has a heat sources in it. Always a good idea to have an external thermostat that can at least help regulate the temperature control so that it doesn't get too hot or get too cold. Now, during the wintertime, we know the obvious reasons why something would overheat is because obviously you're trying to heat the animals up, and the thermostat goes bad and it just continues to heat. Now, during the summertime, the actual opposite can happen. If you've got some kind of a climate controlled system to a building and the animals are on something that basically has a cooling system, something that once the building gets warm enough from just the sun of the day or whatever the case may be. Now in the summertime, the obvious exact opposite will take effect, meaning a lot of the times you'll have this snake building and you're trying to keep it cool from getting too hot. Of course, the thermostat goes bad or the cooling system goes bad, and it continues to heat and heat and heat, okay? Now, that's the big scenario, the big case. In small cases, you have rack systems, snake rack systems, ball pythons, corn snakes, king snakes, whatever, cobras, whatever the case may be. You have rack systems, and most of those rack systems have some form of heat tape, okay? And yes, it creates a hot spot or a warm spot, but over time, if the thermostat goes bad, it can actually overheat each tub, okay? And that's on the smaller scale. The same thing can happen even inside of a habitat, like let's say a habitat like this, or you've got an aquarium at home and you just got a ball python in it, or whatever the case may be, bearded dragon, something like that. Yes, these animals need heat, but there is such a thing as too hot. For some species, too hot is less temperature than other species, but there is such a thing as absolutely too hot. And so inside of the aquarium, let's say you're not, again, this goes back to making sure we cannot stress enough, monitor your temperature. Have an external temperature registering item, whether a temp gun, whether a digital thermometer, whatever the case may be, like any of these examples right here. Do not use those round plastic pieces of crap. They're freaking junk, and don't do it, okay? None of them. None of that junk works. A lot of the times they're more than 10 degrees off. Sometimes even more than that. A digital thermometer, but make sure you're constantly monitoring your temperature with an additional source. Even inside of an aquarium, when we go from springtime or from wintertime to springtime to summertime, a lot of the times people don't think about changing their heating sources, especially when you're using heat lamps and things like that, which is great because, again, remember, animals have sunlight. They don't have freaking heat pads in the wild. There's nothing wrong with the heat pads in certain situations, but they have atmospheric heat. The heat lamps heat up the whole atmosphere, not just the surface. And one of the things that you'll have happen that goes wrong is, well, in the case of like a bearded dragon in the wintertime, let's say you've got a 40 or 55 gallon, okay, 40 breeder, 55 gallon, one of the open front or open top, whatever the case may be. You're running 150, 175, 200 watt heat source in the wintertime, and it's maintaining good temperatures. Will come summertime, it's going to be a little bit too much. It's going to make it too hot. You may find the animal trying to stay more to a cooler area a little bit more often than not. Well, so what happens when the animal overheats? There's a number of things that can happen to the animal when it overheats. One can happen, or many of these things can happen. So one of the things that we talk about when it comes to overheating is no different than in humans, would be heat stroke, or something similar to heat stroke in reptiles. Okay, so when it comes to the issues of overheating, one of the things that when somebody calls us, and it does happen from time to time, but somebody calls us and they think, a lot of times they think they have IBD, which is called inclusion body disease. Look back in our videos for what that one is, okay? I'm not going to go in depth into that one. But we call it cooking the brain. It basically overheats and it causes a neurological disorder. It causes the neurological disorder. Sometimes when folks will call us, or they've called us over the years, and they're like, man, I think my snake has IBD, first thing we ask them, when you were messing with the snake, did it feel really, really hot to the touch? And most of the time they're like, yeah, he really did. And what happened is you cooked the snake. The snake cooked, got way, way too hot. It's really easy, especially if you catch it right then, right there. I mean, obviously if the snake is hot to the touch, like really warm, excessively warm, super hot to the touch, that right there is point blank, and we instantly know exactly what has happened to it. The snake overheated. The lizard overheated, whatever the case may be. You can find that from things like just disorientation, like they can't really get their strength. They're just, there's tremors, refusing to eat. There could be anything from like rolling backwards, almost like stargazing, what we would consider stargazing. Wobbling is another one. Lack of consciousness, a lack of interest in food. Just they're acting ways in which they normally wouldn't act. Now, so what do we do when that happens? Unfortunately, there's not much anybody can do. No vet, no reptile medical professional, no expert just in the field of any form or fashion. There's no magical cure for this. There's no real easy thing that just completely takes it away. When you come into a situation where you find a reptile or a bunch of reptiles have overheated, okay, and as it were, the easiest thing you can do is get them to a cooler location, not cold. Do not put them in direct cold, or do not put direct cold directly on them. That's a bad thing, okay? You want to allow them to gradually cool themselves down. So find, if it's in an enclosed hot place, find an outdoor open air area in a shaded area that will allow them to start being able to get air, breathe natural air, their body to start cooling down. If you want to mist them with a little bit of the water, that's fine, but it needs to be more lukewarm water, okay? Lukewarm to room temperature water, not cold water at all. But you can do compresses if you wanted to do that in the case of, for example, like a bearded dragon or a single snake or something like that. You get a rag and you have lukewarm water on it or room temperature water on it. You can just set it right on there, and that will help slowly. You want to slowly bring the temperature down. You want to do it quickly, but not fast. You want their body temperature to come down, absolutely, but you want it to do it over the course of minutes, not over the course of seconds. Okay? So again, unfortunately, there's not a lot of miracle cure things that you can do for an animal when it comes to overheating other than get them out of where they were hot, fix that situation, get them into somewhere where their body can naturally cool down as best as possible, and then just hope for the best. I mean, unfortunately, that's really what it boils down to, is hope for the best. Now, I'm not going to talk about burns. Burns, I'll do in another video, actually dealing with reptilian burns. This is not dealing with reptilian burns. This is dealing with just the issue of overheating. Just the animal got too hot and started having heat stroke symptoms or neurological symptoms because of just being too hot, not being able to escape the excessive heat and thermoregulate their body temperature. Now, with that being said, again, make sure to always be monitoring your temperatures, okay? And again, unfortunately, there's no miracle cure for this. Yes, you can put some, what we would consider warm compresses on them, not hot, not cold, but a room temperature, lukewarmish compress on them. You can just take them and set them out in open air where it's shaded, where it's a cooler environment, not cold environment, but cooler environment, and allow their body temperature to drop quickly but slowly, slow enough but fast enough that hopefully they weren't in the overheating situation for so long that it does create neurological symptoms or ultimately lead to death due to excessive periods of time of being exposed to excessive heat. Okay? Now, this is Chad. We are the Reptile Rangers. And this is, well, he doesn't have a name, but this is one of our bearded dragon buddies here at the zoo. We are the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center. We appreciate you following along. This is dealing with overheating in reptiles. We hope this has been helpful, gives you insight into not only trying to prevent overheating from happening, but if for some reason, unfortunately, the overheating issue does happen, then how to deal with trying to save your reptile as humanly best as possible to be able to keep your pet safe with as little after effects and side effects from the overheating as absolutely possible. Now, we appreciate you following along week after week after week. Make sure to write us in, let us know of other things you want us to film about. Feel free to leave a comment. Our information will be in the description below. Do not forget about the TikTok channel. We do have the TikTok channel entitled Reptile Rangers. Also, don't forget about the storefront. We sell pets every single day. And this is one that's available for rehoming for a new family. So if you're interested in a pet, feel free and get with us. We are happy to help you out in any way that we can. Again, we are the Reptile Rangers here at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center. We appreciate you following along week after week after week. We'll either see you here at the zoo or we'll see you on the next episode. Later.